have Julie Farley from SEMrush today joining us. She's going to talk about from lead gen to demand gen SEMrush playbook. So why should we listen to their playbook? Well, they're at the moment, they just passed 100,000 paying customers and they have over 377 million in ARR. So I think that's a really good number to look against and have as a goal for yourself. She's international lead EMEA, or actually no longer, but she's going to tell more about that. And she also is a digital marketing consultant, so she also helps other companies to do the exact same thing. Without further ado, let's just dive right in.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. Do we have slides working, or? That was probably from before. Anyway, so while we figure out the slides, there is a story behind the International Lead EMEA title, and it's because we are talking about a shift that SEMrush made from lead gen to demand gen. So I'm happy to say that we now have our own demand gen department, but this actual shift had to happen, and you don't actually need a department, or you actually don't need a full team to do that. And this is kind of what I'm hoping to share today in the talk. And I'm really happy that this is kind of a masterclass format because we really get to dive into like the actual nitty-gritty of how we're doing things. Again, this is our personal experience, but based on inspiration from great world players. So let's just get started because I have a lot to say. Yeah, and it's just this one, right? Yep. Okay, yeah, so let's do this. So for those who might not know SEMrush, we're an online visibility platform. We've been there for about 16 years. We celebrated our 16th anniversary this year. And what has changed a lot from us is we started from mostly a self-serve platform to help businesses, smaller businesses, with their SEO, their content marketing, PPC, all in one. And we have evolved with the launch of our new enterprise platform to actually help large businesses with all of that, but more. So this is something we're going to dive into. But so basically, I came on board about 2 years ago, just a little shy of 2 years, to help lead the French market. Started looking at the launch of our new platform. And what my biggest challenge was understanding is how can we make a shift internally but externally of how people perceive the brand and perceive SEMrush. Because we are known to smaller businesses and we are now targeting a much bigger and wider range audience and these really, really big companies. So this kind of led me to move very quickly into this EMEA role. So we've been kind of with the shift of this, working very closely with sales. So just one parenthesis here. Who is from sales? Anyone in the sales? Great. Anyone from marketing? Everyone else from marketing? Love it. Okay, so this is good. The reason I say this is because we're going to talk a lot about sales and marketing alignment in this talk, and this is something that's been like a key pillar for us. Before we get started into the playbook, just want to set the tone and the context, right? So one of the things that we always ask ourselves as B2B marketers is, where do we struggle? And something that I personally struggle, but I can definitely relate to this, is measuring proper results of our marketing programs. A lot of times our C-level, our CEOs are looking for those quick wins, looking for these high impact activations. And sometimes it means that we're kind of deprioritizing the smaller things, right? So we're deprioritizing the longer scale efforts, just like an SEO strategy, right? So this is when we kind of have to vouch for that. And something else that kind of resonated with people is making data actionable. So I know we talk about being data-led. Today we're also going to talk about being data-informed. And the reason I say this is because we are probably being bombarded with so much data. Everyone's talking about collecting data and data and data, but we need to find ways to actually make this data actionable for us and work for us. So sometimes I feel like we get lost in the data. And then I just found that was interesting. 50% of B2B marketers did not meet their goals in 2023. I'm looking forward to seeing the numbers in 2024. Did not have them available for this, but this is a trend that I think is something we have to address. And for us, it's also something that we kind of felt, even though the company's thriving, as we launched this new platform, we did see the risks of potentially not meeting our goals if we didn't have the proper strategy in place. So just to go very quick through what we're going to be looking at today is just understanding the basics of demand generation and why we did that shift. Explaining a little bit the metrics that for us define success at SEMrush when it comes to the demand gen program. And then just kind of walking you through that little blueprint that we could call, or that framework that we came up with to kind of lead that shift to where we are today. and how what are the core pillars for us in that strategy. So just kind of how do we start? Basically, we started with phase 1, which was internal buy-in. We saw a problem. We saw that there was a lack of sales and marketing alignment. As we were going up market, we had the need to better collaborate with sales. I have a slide later that some of you might relate to, but we need to prove the concept that this enterprise platform actually caters to a certain audience and that we have access to this audience. Currently, our database was made of pretty much small businesses. So what we needed to do was we needed to come up with a strategy and a plan to say, how can we branch out of this audience that knows us already and start targeting these larger companies and larger and higher seniority profiles. Finally, it's phase 2, which is kind of where we're finalizing this stage now, is we had to formalize a structure, align goals, definitions, and I'll walk you through a campaigns-based approach afterwards. And finally, this is what we are currently moving towards now, is this automating and scaling all of this. So if you just go back a little bit, a little back about the evolution of B2B marketing, right? I don't know how you feel about this, and please, I'm super open to talking about it, but originally we're being measured mostly B2B marketers on leads, quantity of leads that we bring, right? So you have siloed teams. You have your marketing team meeting their goals, saying, yeah, we got 20K leads a month, or we got 50K leads a month, or we got, and then you got your sales team saying, yeah, but we're not making money, so what's going on, right? And then there is a bit of this, let's say, this debate internally saying we're not bringing in the proper amount of quality of leads, and then sales are not being able to convert them, so then we complain that sales are not converting our leads. What are we looking at now? We're actually looking at quality and engagement of these leads. So we're no longer going after quantity, but we're going actually after quality and high intent leads. So this is something we're going to talk about, the framework. And what is going to be driving this decision and those strategies is analytics, understanding the buyer behavior, and the overall digital landscape and tools that we have access to. So for those who might not be as familiar with demand gen, what is kind of the big difference between demand gen, lead gen, and demand gen? So as a lead gen program, we would be looking to solve a problem that our customers are already aware that they have, right? So we're kind of presenting them the benefits of our solution. We're presenting them the benefits of our product. We're using gated resources to kind of capture them in with ebooks and webinars. And from that, we say, oh, we have a successful lead gen program because we captured that info. So we're kind of stopping at the contact level, right? Instead of like what demand gen would be doing is making prospects aware of a problem. So what we do is we analyze the total addressable market that we have. We understand the total addressable in market that we have. So instead of talking about TAM, we talk about TAIM. So what I mean by that is instead of saying we're going to pass on leads that are in market, we're actually going to be nurturing these leads until they are in market with a high intent to buy. So this means is we're still doing a lot of top of funnel work, so we're going to see a little bit after that. But what we're going to be doing is working very, very hard on increasing brand authority, using free resources to get people to really understand our product, understand what we do, see us as thought leaders. And after that, once they show an intent to buy, get them in. And this is kind of something that is a little different from lead gen, because in a demand gen program, you're not going to see hundreds of thousands of leads flowing in a month. You're going to be seeing maybe 100 leads, 1,000 leads, maybe 2,000 leads, but those are going to be high intent leads. So those are leads that are actually showing an interest in buying your product or services. So what we are doing is we are engaging with a wider audience to really build this nurturing of the company and the brand. And what we're doing is building a pipeline of interest leads that are ready to buy. So I don't know if you've heard about the dark funnel. Anyone knows yes, great. So this is something that a lot of times when we were talking about, it's hard to measure, right? Some of these programs are very hard to measure. The dark funnel is how B2B marketers buy nowadays. And this is something that is very, very hard for people to accept, especially as a senior level where they want you to measure each individual program, each individual channel. What is very hard is explaining to them that before you actually see that potential buyer, there's probably, here I just put 10, but there's probably 8 to 10 touch points that you cannot measure. So this is where we really need to work as a demand gen team to make sure that this dark funnel is properly nurturing people so that when we actually start seeing them, the conversion rate or the conversion time is less. So this is something, for instance, the dark funnel could be, people saw a post that I shared on LinkedIn a few hours ago that I was talking about. You know, I was talking here at the show. Maybe someone mentioned, you talked to a coworker while having coffee, and they said, hey, did you see that platform, SEMrush, what they do? This is not something I can measure, right? Something about listening to a branded podcast. So we have our own podcast in French, Le Market du Café, and this is exactly what we do here. We interview people, we talk, but we're not directly selling to them. We don't track exactly everyone who's listening to that. So here, basically what we're saying is, once we start seeing people on our websites or reading our blog posts, which is when we start tracking them, we understand that there's pre-touch points to their journey. And this is something that the customer journey is no longer linear, right? So this is something we talk about. So this is where you have all this happening before. So when you plan your demand gen strategy, you need to keep that in mind. And then when you get buy-in for it, people need to understand what this could mean in terms of measuring your programs. So basically, some of the few very tangible benefits: customer loyalty, increased brand awareness, and ultimately increasing revenue. So why did we make this shift, and what did this mean for SEMrush? The reason we made this shift is, as we started selling to enterprise companies, we actually had to pass our customers through sales team. We no longer needed, the customers were no longer self-serving themselves onto our platform and buying a subscription, right? We had deal cycles that are running from 6 to 9 months. We needed about 17 touch points, and we needed about 4 to 5 meetings to be able to get just a negotiation going with these people. So this meant we also had to get 4 to 5 personas in the buying committee to agree to this platform. And then we also had to focus on the quality of these people. So instead of before putting someone in front of the sales team or before putting them in front of one of our solutions engineer for a demo, we needed to make sure that these people actually fit the profile and had a right intent to buy the platform. Why it matters? Well, basically what we talked about: building relationships, increasing brand awareness, and ensuring that the leads you attract become loyal paying customers. This, I say loyal, and it's very important because all the efforts that we put towards converting these leads and all the money that we put towards converting the leads, we don't want it to go to waste, right? So this is something that I unfortunately don't talk about much here, and I feel like I should have, but churn is a huge thing. So when you onboard enterprise customers like us, we're talking long contracts, but we also talk that the cost of churn could be so high if customers are not properly onboarded and have proper customer loyalty. So what do we talk about when we talk about not just leads, but engaged customers, right? So this is kind of a key point to our model here. We talked about identifying key metrics. We talked about aligning on those metrics, so we'll touch base on that a little after. We talk about aligning goals. So marketing and sales are currently sharing the same targets, and this is something that took very long to happen. So we do have our own marketing targets. We have our own metrics that we measure, and we'll look at those after. But we do work under the same revenue goal. And the reason we do this is if we not all work towards the same revenue goal, what's going to happen is marketing is going to pass MQLs. Now we no longer call them leads, they're MQLs because they're qualified. But what's going to happen is then our team is going to convert them, and then who gets the attribution, right? And then we get the same problem as before, right? We actually brought the leads, no, but we converted them, and then so on. Recalibrating strategies. So content tailored to customer journey stages. So we are focusing a lot of top of funnel, but we are bringing these people down the funnel, and we'll see the funnel a little after, with different tailored pieces. So this is another talk of mine, which I don't have time to talk about today, but ABM is a huge thing for us, right? So we are identifying key accounts to go after, and we're identifying the personas that we're going after in each and every single account, and we're doing one-to-one plays, one-to-few plays, one-to-many plays, depending on the goals that we have and depending on what stage they're at in the funnel. And team collaboration, this is just so big. And again, I'm gonna insist on this sales. So we have our 2 sales members at the back. Sales and marketing actually can get along. I mean, it might sound funny for some of you, but I can tell you it is possible. It's not easy. Doesn't mean we might be in the honeymoon phase now, but it is possible for sales and marketing to get along. But this also, when we talk about team collaboration, we talk about product. We need to loop in our product team so they understand what actually sells, how our customers resonate with our messaging and offer. So you'll see a little bit how we did it. a little bit after. So metrics that actually matter, metrics that we are starting to look at. We're starting to look at customer lifetime value. So we're no longer just looking at leads or registrations or impressions, right? So we're looking at total revenue from a single account over a lifetime. And this is what helps us focusing on high value accounts and to help optimize our resources. We're looking at engagement score. So we're scoring these accounts, we're scoring our personas in our ABM platform to understand how, if they have a high intent to buy, if they don't have a high intent to buy. We measure the prospect engagement through website visits, open emails, attendance to event, webinar registrations, and then we adjust strategies to boost engagement. Marketing source revenue, this is huge, and this is something that, again, is not easy to do, but we are starting to work on attributing and understanding incremental revenue that marketing brings to these deals. So that doesn't mean we only need to bring net new logos. It means we can actually help expand our current customer base, right? So we were mentioning before, SEMrush currently has 100,000 paying customers. Out of those 100,000 paying customers, I guarantee you there are dozens of thousands that fit that enterprise ICP that we are looking for. So why not start there? Right? In the past, what has been the issue is that sales was mostly focused on expanding these customers because it was something that we could separate. We could silo the goals. Marketing brings in the lead and sales expands those. This here is something that we've shifted. So now we can help expand customers and we can actually work on that and then start to measure the incremental marketing revenue on these accounts. So also conversion rate, instead of starting to measure the conversion rate from impression to lead, we're actually measuring the conversion rate all the way down the funnel. So this means that we're trying to understand when we first see this person, when we first see a prospect or a target account, how much time does it take and what is the conversion rate from each of our programs for them to actually convert to a closed won customer? And this is something that's been very different. Originally, marketing teams, normally what they'll do is they'll stop at the lead stage, right? And they'll say, well, we converted at 25%, we converted at 10%. Here, what we're trying to measure is, well, if we can measure this conversion rate, we can actually attribute to our annual revenue goal, which is something that originally we weren't doing. And finally, the sales cycle. So I started to speak sales, right? So we started speaking sales cycle. We started speaking average, understanding the cycle length, but also the average check value from the different programs, because it's interesting to get the MQLs across to sales, but what we want to understand is which programs are driving the biggest average checks, so targets with the biggest average checks, and what programs that we drive are actually bringing faster customers, right? So are we converting them faster with those higher checks? So this is something where we start optimizing campaigns and we start seeing actually what is working. Sorry. In terms of making the shift, so here, this is just a little bit how we started doing it. So this, I feel like some of you might relate to this, how it usually happens, right? I think we talked about that before. We have a marketing plan. Marketing complains that sales doesn't convert their lead. Sales complains that the leads are bad, and then there's a sales wish list, and then sales says, well, no, you need to make some collateral for me so I can better sell. And then, I need content because if not, my customers are not gonna respond to that. I need some case studies, and that's pretty much the function that a marketing team has had, right? Can you relate to that a little bit? As you marketers, yes? It's okay, there's only 3 salespeople in the room. We can be honest, okay. So this was my biggest problem when I started kind of leading this shift in the organization, right? So what we needed to start doing was making sales and our peers basically realize that marketing is actually enabling them, but through our own strategy. So we're just not responding to them in a sense of orders and doing that. So it took time, but we made our play. We started running some of our own campaigns, and they started seeing the benefits of these quality leads coming in, and they started saying, hey, how come we're suddenly seeing 50% week over week in MQLs, and where are we saying? We're saying, hey, well, because we have ideas and we have campaigns that we can run if you let us run them with a strategy behind them. So the first thing we started doing was just kind of understanding our pipeline. So a lot of times I feel like marketers, if you work, mostly on the, if you work more on the self-serve side, we don't really understand what's going on behind the sales team, right? Or like what they measure and how they're measuring things. So what we started looking is understanding our pipeline across markets, different segments and industries. And we started asking some questions like, where should we focus our efforts based on market segments and industries? What's working best? What are the win rates? What are the number of ops that we get? What is the average sales cycle or the average contract value? that we have for the different segments or markets, right? How can we improve revenue metrics? So here again, are we seeing a lack, for instance, between what the sales team is trying to close and building their pipeline for the next month in certain industries? Is there anything we can do to support? And then what are some of the revenue metrics that are low or declining? This is also something that's good because I think a lot of times we're looking at what is working and what doesn't. And I think a lot of times we'll just look at what doesn't. And I think sometimes we need to kind of put more efforts into what actually works and doubling down on that and understanding why it works. So we're doing a bit of both. So first we needed to understand what wasn't working, why it wasn't working. So this for instance, had us rechange our whole influencer strategy, social media strategy. It had us, we're still going through it. It also had us kind of start evaluating our gated content. Right? So gating all of these ebooks and reports and blog posts and anything for just people to get their emails into understanding that maybe we should offer these resources for people so they actually see us as thought leaders and then actually have a high intent to buy. And once we actually nurture them into that stage, then ask them for their information and ask them for, offer them the opportunity of understanding more what we do. And then the third stage for us was just go-to-market alignment. This was huge, go-to-market. We needed to kind of understand who our ICP was for this new enterprise platform, the messaging behind the platform. So something we're currently working on is, as SEMrush evolves, we are going through phases of acts that we call. So Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, just like in theater, right? And our Act 1 was what people knew us to be as like the SEO specialists, and we were targeting these very specific users. Now in Act 2, we are actually shifting the messaging to reach more the directors and of organic search and people who have a more strategy level over teams so they can actually understand the value that a platform like Enterprise would have over them. And then Act 3 was kind of what we hope and aspire to be at, and it's kind of becoming that data partner for making better business decisions. So this is something we currently had to kind of align between product marketing and sales, is understanding at what stage are we at now and where do we want to be? Why do I say this? Because as a marketer, I know what the product is and I will sell what we have. Sales team is already selling Act 4 and 5 right now. Okay, I don't know if you can feel this, but this is normally what happens is we sell already and a lot of times we kind of have to rail those in, and it's good to have this vision and being visionary when selling, but for us, we need to align on actually offering something that we have. So what we ended up doing is aligning a lot of messaging, customer research, and then understanding the buyer journey. So one thing I started doing is with the team, we started looking at who are our best customers. And this, I would definitely recommend that you do that. So check out their 20% best performing customers, best paying customers, most loyal customers. Who are they, where they're from, how did they buy, how did they know you? And then learn from that. Because I think a lot of times we're just gonna look at the overall of everything that we have. But if we focus on who we want to have and the best that we have, we actually can tailor our messaging and tailor our tactics to that. How do they buy? How can we influence their buying journey? And then how can we make our message more relevant to them, right? So by understanding who they are, how can we tailor this communication to them? And then finally, there was the motions alignment. So here is all about aligning expectations, definitions, and goals based on different tactics and motion. So some of the motions, for instance, that we evaluate is acquiring new customers, expanding opportunities, retaining customers, and then win backs. So that was a big thing for us as well, right? Sometimes things can happen where you launch a product and you currently don't have, you sell something that you don't have. A lot of times kind of it results in churn or results in people not being able to fully onboard into the platform to their full potential. So this was the opportunity for us to say, listen, this is where we're at now, and this is how we can help you in this stage, and then kind of let them know of our future plans. So we started aligning on what are MQLs. It's very basic definitions, right? But I feel like every single team I spoke to at SEMrush that were working around leads had a different definition for MQLs. Some of them were talking about revenue. Some of them were talking about company size. Some of them were talking about certain countries or tiering the countries about that. So we had to align on definitions. What are them? How do we pass them on to sales? And then we had to come up with some sort of definition or phases or project where we could all define and understand the SLA around our plan for selling enterprise. And then, of course, what do we consider churn? We talked about it a little bit, but also this is big because a lot of times I feel like you need to have a plan in place for these churned customers. What happens with all the lost customers? Do we actually have something in mind for them? So this is something that we started looking into as well. And then came kind of just listing out what we're going to be doing for these different pipeline focus. So here what we had are 2 focus lists, active focus and future pipeline. So the active focus was set to accelerate current clients, expand opportunities, and then high intent new accounts that were already in our book of business. And then the future pipeline, which is where demand gen kind of really takes lead on that, was how can we convert these accounts with low intent and actually make them that fit our high ICP and actually help them bring them to a place of being high intent inside the market. So basically we've been asking questions like, how do we create awareness or demand amongst these accounts? How to create awareness and demand in those segments? How could we do that to expand current accounts, right? So we have a whole base of customers that we could work on and expand. So we have a plan for these customers now. How can we nurture those accounts? How can we collect information to understand that they have a potential or need for a product? If yes, what is their customer journey? That's not easy to do, but we've kind of been trying to map out by the analysis that we did on our pipeline. We are mapping out the possible customer journeys based on the personas and ICP that we're targeting. So then when we actually get into the funnel, right, and the demand generation strategy that we have. So we have a part of the funnel, which is creation of demand, capture of demand, and then conversion of demand. So here, for instance, for our demand generation funnel, we're looking at the creation part, which is basically 99% of your audience. So this is something that's a little bit different than if we were working just on a lead-based form. But here we're trying to target or generate impact or create demand in accounts that didn't know that they were in market or didn't know they had a need for our product. So we're making people aware of a problem. With that, it's all brand-related activities. So again, this is where we talk about that dark funnel. This is where we talk about it's being hard to measure these things. So we're looking at podcast, events, social media, dark social, PR, community groups, industry-specific webinars, us attending webinars, being guests or hosts or on podcast. And here we're going to be looking at KPIs that are more brand and marketing related, right? But this is going to help us just understand kind of the health of these programs. So we're going to be looking at reach, engagement, brand mentions, share of voice, and overall insights around the brand, how people are reacting to the brand as a whole. And then we kind of go into that demand capture phase, which is kind of that 1%, 2%, 3%. We all have different metrics or data around that. Where it's more like the performance-related activity, right? So it's capturing people directly through an SEO post because they search for it, right? Something that we ranked on Google, getting them with search, affiliation program, email marketing, just digital campaigns on LinkedIn, on YouTube, to get people to actually show an intent. Once we capture that intent is normally when we can then work with sales and pass them on to convert them. So here we're looking at the demand conversion. So it's passing on these MQLs to sales for them to then look at converting them. So here, for instance, in order to pass people to the demand conversion stage, we normally will do landing page optimization, price experiments, bundles. This might not work for some products. It does work for our SEMrush core platform, not as much for the enterprise platform because the pricing is custom. We'll be doing a bunch of nurture tracks based on these accounts. So again, with the ABM place that we have, this is where we get granular. This is where we get to the one-to-one. We're actually targeting the CFO of a company, we're targeting the CMO, and we're targeting the head of product, knowing that these are the 3 people in our buying group that are going to have an impact or on that decision. And here we're going to be looking at our demo requests is probably like the biggest thing for us. This is where we have the highest intent and we see the highest intent of people. If they request a demo for the platform that specifically says, this is what we sell, this is for this type of profile, for us this is the highest scoring that we could have. So this is how we're currently working. In terms of being able to properly communicate this and get this program in place, what we've been doing is, apart from the buy-in, which was very key, so we found our champions in the team. I had to, there's a lot of internal marketing that has to be done when you want to build a new team. We had to regularly share updates on our activities. We were starting to run some weekly check-ins with the different teams. I will talk about a little bit more the actual organization that we have around that. But basically, it's very, very important for us to make people aware inside the company just as much as outside the company of what we're doing, because this is where you actually can find cross-collaboration opportunities and secure resources for further opportunities. So this is where, for instance, I started as the international lead, but just over the summer, we were able to secure our own team budget. And now we actually have a whole department, and we're actually hiring for 10 people for 2025 to help us build and scale this program that we launched as a pilot. So a little bit to talk about the core pillars for us. So I did talk about the more generic demand gen strategy that we had. This is more like how we did it and just getting down to the nitty gritty. So sales marketing alignment, creating a content machine. Some people call it like a demand engine. There's many words around, like, or different concept around it. It's all more or less the same. And then launching 360 campaigns. And the reason I want to talk about campaigns is just because the way we're doing it, I feel like maybe not everyone is thinking about it that way. I'm just going to take a glass of water, just 1 second. I talk a lot, I know. So we did talk about, aligning with sales and marketing, but just like putting it out there. Companies with aligned sales and marketing teams actually achieve 36% higher customer retention rate and 38% higher sales win rates. I think it's significant, right? To still, I know I'm planting that seed in your head right now, but I think sales and marketing is definitely something we need to focus more on, and there is definitely a need for. So again, for us, when it was about working together, I talk about sales and marketing, but we cannot miss the product piece. I did touch base on it, so I won't stay too long on this. But working with recurring meetings with the sales marketing team and product team is key to align on messaging, align on proposition value, align on key target accounts, but as well align on the overall brand experience that we want to bring towards the platform. So what we ended up doing was creating our demand squad. Demand squad is basically a group of 4 key members from marketing, sales, marketing analytics, and RevOps to help us kind of put that pilot test in place in the company. So this was way before the demand gen team was created. What we ended up doing with that demand squad was creating and attending different key meetings with our teams, or creating some of them that we didn't have before. So we do have some of them. We have a meeting that is called Pipeline Council that we do with our different regions. So we do that with North EMEA, South EMEA, and the US, North America, where we sit in with sales leaders and managers to understand the pipeline health and understand where they lack and where they're winning. And this is for us kind of to share as well how we're producing in terms of pipeline creation for them and what is the overall health and stage of that. Leadership syncs are key in understanding how to better see the vision of the demand gen program, but as well align the vision that they have for selling enterprise platform. And then cross-functional collaboration, so the SMB, so that sales marketing product team. What is key is I've noticed in these past 6 months, speaking to leadership is not enough. And the reason I say this is because we need to be able to make the message go down directly to the AEs or to the marketing managers or to the paid team so we actually bring down the communication level directly to the team members. So whether it's through a marketing all hands, a sales kickoff, or a sales all hands, and we align. And then in those 3 meetings, we're actually sharing 2 things. We're sharing wins, we're sharing risks, we're measuring key metrics, so shared metrics, and then we have recurring feedback loops with all the teams involved. So every time we launch a campaign, every time we have a new sales play, we're going to be looking at what's working, what's not working, and we'll be kind of working through milestones. So 2 weeks after launch, 4 weeks after launch, 2 months after launch, and 6 months after launch, kind of seeing and evaluating the different stages of that. So if we look into our journey, we already talked about the demand squad, which was very key. I already kind of mentioned our marketing. We are very focused on just driving the demand generation initiatives. This started very small. Like I said, it was just me kind of aligning with 3 other colleagues. And what we ended up doing was understanding the role of events for enterprise customers. So events was a big play for us when we started because it was a way to directly measure. I see OMR. We were at OMR in Hamburg. So OMR was actually the first show we did in Europe to present the platform. And we saw a key opportunity to understand if it resonated with marketing leaders in the DACH region, but also Europe. And it was a big success. Also, then this is when we started understanding possibly the issues that we had with tracking, because tracking all of these is very manual. So this is where scaling is going to be a big thing for us, because we need to automate how we pass on these leads into our different platforms. So the sales team was just there to share, of course, their targets, customer insights. So they're the ones directly selling. So I can have a feedback loop with sales was just key for them to say, our website lists this tagline, yet we're selling this, and this is what actually sells. And this was actually key to me, because as a marketer, we have, at least in our, on our end, what we feel is when we create these taglines, we think of a fictitious buying persona. If it's not something you've sold before. So you say, yeah, we are targeting XYZ persona with XYZ roles with XYZ pain points. But then until you actually don't start selling it, you don't really know, right? So what we actually started doing is, for the first 8 months that the platform was in beta, we actually started collecting all these insights and then adjusting our messaging to that. And actually we found that most of the stuff we wrote on our website the first time we launched the beta was not what was actually selling. So this is when you kind of iterate and help. And then marketing analytics and RevOps are just key to help track, because this was very hard. We're going from just registering leads into our CRM to actually trying to understand multi-touch attribution or multi-touch points into a different campaign or a different lead object. And this is something that was very hard, and it's still not ideal because just of the way the systems are put in. So connecting our CRM with our Salesforce, or connecting our email campaigns with our different channels, understanding the impact of our paid channels onto these touch points is still a struggle. But it's definitely something we're working towards by creating some very tailored custom objects into our Salesforce and having RevOps and marketing analytics directly working into that to help us track it. So a little bit for us, what was key is starting small. So like I said, we started with a few events, started with a few campaigns. We analyzed the results, have contingency plans, and then scale up. In terms of creating that content machine that I was telling you about, which was kind of the second big thing that we are doing, what we ended up doing is we had to focus on understanding our ICP. So based on the pipeline analysis that we did, we leveraged subject matter experts, and it's something we're going to keep doing and going to see a lot more this year. And this is when I said before, we did kind of reevaluate our whole influencer strategy when it came to enterprise. And the reason is the current way we were working with influencers is not currently bringing the results for the target audience that we have. So we needed to look outside our usual channels, let's just say, to kind of build a new audience outside of these usual channels. Started looking at content distribution and optimization, but here we'll dig more in here. So listing our channels. So what we ended up doing for content is grouping our main activities into 4 pods. This is something I've seen before, and is something we kind of replicated. I've seen a few companies do it, and it's worked really well for us, is kind of understanding our content partnerships. So here we kind of, are trying to put together all our webinars, market research articles, white papers that we might be sponsoring, podcast interviews. We have our social engagement, so anything that is like in the dark social, which is harder to measure. So meaningful comments, thought leadership of our team, or we have a big EAP program. Some of you might see us on LinkedIn. This is all part of this program. And then we have, of course, the non-sales touches and DMs, or anything that you can't really measure, but this is something that we actively work towards. So we do have people that are working a strategy to kind of make sure we connect in the background with this audience. Events, like I said, it used to be part of a different pillar, but we ended up creating its own pillar because it's just so key for us when it comes to enterprise, the enterprise world, and how the people buy. Especially in Europe, we found that the personal touch point and personal meetings were key to kind of accelerating these like 6 to 9 months deals that we had to close. So we've been doing a lot of micro events, attending a few summits, and hosting our own events as well. When it comes to paid distribution, ABM is going to play and is playing a key role in our strategy at the moment. So understanding our target accounts. I would love to do a whole talk on ABM, to be honest, because we're very deep into it right now. But a lot of times, this also requires a lot of sales and marketing alignment when it comes to understanding which accounts to go after. And we've had a lot of tough discussions around this topic. And the reason I say this is the 3 salespeople that are here are probably going to say, like, we want the top European companies or top US companies, and say, this is the target list that we want, right? Can you relate to that? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I would love that, but I feel like every other company is going after the same companies, and doesn't mean that these people are in market. So what we started doing is kind of negotiating with their sales team and saying, fine, you have a target list of accounts you want us to go after. These are called the Roomba accounts. I don't know if you've heard this before. You know, like a Roomba? You know, like the vacuum that goes at the door? This is what we do, because we're kind of knocking on the door, on the wall, trying to find a way into the people's accounts, into the people's companies, but they don't have the door open. Well, with an ABM tool and a proper ABM strategy, we would be targeting accounts that already have the door half open, right? So this is what we're trying to demonstrate is, fine, we'll go after your Roomba accounts. We're gonna dedicate a few resources for the Roomba accounts, but what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna be targeting companies that are showing an intent into the product. Again, it's not easy, but this is kind of how we've been negotiating things. And of course, top performing content and case studies are a huge thing for us in our paid distribution strategy. Here, this is just a very brief example of what we can imagine that flywheel to look like. I try to be as visual as possible with the lack of design skills that I have, but for me, I would just want people to understand that when we talk about creating a main piece of content, how it can expand into so many pieces. So every time we create a campaign, which we'll kind of dive into after, every time we create a campaign, we expect, we have the possibility of creating in our 4 pillars that we mentioned before: top performing content, thought leadership content, case studies. We could host webinars around that main piece of content. We could do industry specific webinars. We could do ABM campaigns, podcast interviews, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason we say this is because we want to be mindful, we want to be efficient in creating these campaigns. And this is why when we actually look into the campaign structure that we have, you'll understand a little bit more. So launching 360 campaigns is key for us. I'll just look into the framework that we're using right now. So I wish I could show you the actual lucid chart, like the mirror board that we have for this, because there's I don't know how many pages in there. So I just kind of explained the framework around it. But basically, every quarter for us is being overarched by a main theme. So we have our overarching theme that will kind of dictate and help accompany those campaigns. And then under that, we're going to have some campaigns that are going to be the major piece of content for each of those campaigns. Normally, we're looking at about potentially 1 big campaign per month that we're going to be launching. Again, this is just on the very broad concept here. And this main piece of content is going to kind of look at a target audience category. So here, we're going to be looking at what kind of approach are we having in this play. Are we looking at a one-to-few, one-to-one, one-to-many play? And then when we look at the campaign types, it's kind of the reason why we reach out to this audience. And one campaign can have more than a campaign type. So campaign types could be compelling events. So a key persona changed jobs. It could be, for instance, expanding some certain accounts, industry-specific trends. We could also be looking at overall just executive engagement from events that we're trying to gain. And then, of course, we list all our distribution channels for each of these campaigns. So the reason what I wanted to mention that was so important about how we structure our campaigns is that our major piece of content, if we go back to the flywheel, is going to be producing pretty much all of these contents. And then what happens is that at the end of each campaign, we kind of end up with about 80 pieces of content that we can use, 80 pieces of content that we could use for paid ads, organic, or Content Hub. We can then produce some snippets because we're doing a few videos. And this is the way of being way, 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 way more efficient. So this is the project manager side of me that kind of really wanted to implement this. But I feel like a lot of times when we try to run these campaigns, we try to hit one campaign for retail industry, one campaign for finance. This is just a type. So we have an overarching theme that will accompany our messaging throughout the quarter and the evolution of the platform throughout the quarter. And then under that, we're going to have our major contents that can then be tailored to markets, industries, compelling events, specific personas, et cetera, et cetera. Am I doing on time? Am I doing okay? Yeah. Okay. So and another thing that was key to us, and this is something we're definitely working on, is creating a way that we can launch campaigns in an autonomous way. And the reason I say this is being a very small team, but having really, really high goals, we had to find a way of being reactive, efficient, and also autonomous. So relying on our own design team was important, but we saw that just with the growth that we had to do and just the targets that we had to find a way of being able to launch and adapt our campaigns way faster than a traditional you send out a brief. 2 weeks after, they send out a media plan. 2 weeks after, they send out a design plan. And it takes you 3 months to launch a campaign. We need to be able to be reactive. So what we ended up doing is creating a set, like a content hub of assets, templated assets that we could use to run our campaigns. So it means that we aligned with the design team on all the formats we could possibly need, a few different types of landing pages, different types of ads, different types of email templates, and then we just have all of those ready to plug and play. And this means that we have someone on our team who is now autonomous, who can build their own landing pages, and we can launch landing pages in less than 24 hours if we wanted to. And this is a way for us to be way more efficient. And everything that was, and in a way, this is just a key to the team kind of scaling in a way. So of course, maybe we'll have our own design team at one point, but right now at the stage that we're at, it was key for us. And something that also is very key, and as you grow your teams, I'm sure most of you are doing it, but documented every single workflow and documented every single process is key in order to get these new hires to understand very quickly what you do. If you onboard an agency, if you onboard a vendor, if you work with a company to do events, everyone has access to this information that can help understand and just make the onboarding so much easier. Okay, we're almost done. So just the direct way that we have used our own tools. So this is something that was key for me, just because as we start selling and as we start showcasing this new platform, it just made sense that we used it, right, for our own campaign. So one of the things that was key for us is just SEO. So we talk about, I don't know if you were listening to Nathan's talk before. He mentioned, like, one of the case studies was about how SEO was so key to growing and scaling long-term these companies. So I think a lot of times we have a hard time justifying the SEO strategies just because we're looking for a short win. But what we're able to do is understanding very quickly in our platform, we can investigate drops in traffic, we can compare to other markets and competitors and understand what they're doing, what we're not doing, where are the gaps that we could find, analyzing results or changes around our website. This is kind of key if ever of you suffer from like a Google update. I don't know if you've had any of those issues. This is a way to kind of very quickly understanding what this does. Normally a Google update will take about 3 to 5 days of analysis to understand what the issue is. We're actually doing this in a few hours, which was key for us to understand what content we need to produce, what are ICPs actually looking for, and where are they looking for it. Sorry. Another thing that was key for us was just understanding our content process, so utilizing data to help with keyword research, content analysis, overall just content briefings inside our own platform, because now what we're doing is collaborating with our internal teams and telling them, listen, we're seeing an opportunity to create content around XYZ topics. People are searching about that. Our competitors are currently not ranking for this. We have a huge opportunity to rank before them. And then we get to assign a task directly to our content writers. We get to assign a task directly to our SEO experts, so we can get the products and we can get the content produced in no time inside the own platform. And then I get to track all of these processes inside our own platform. This also really helps us with content optimization and just understanding and having a template for our briefs, our content briefings, which just kind of helps make everyone be aligned on the content production side. Just to give you just a side note very quickly, so some of you who might know SEMrush from the core business, we actually have about 25 marketing units for each of the products that we launch. And every single unit produces their own campaigns, and every single unit produces their own content. So you can imagine that there could be clash of content. By putting all of it into the same platform, we get to see who's doing what to understand if we can leverage some of these things or if we can actually flag potential cannibalization from our own teams, actually. What we're also doing, which really helps, was monitoring our top performing content. So we talked a little bit of understanding content changes and the quality of our content according to Google's algorithm, but against our competitors, and tracking performance of the most important keywords for our enterprise customers. So this allows us to really kind of create a list of important keywords, important targets, and understand if these people are searching these keywords. If they're not, try to figure out what they're actually understanding what they are actually searching and produce content for them. What has been key, and I mentioned a little bit before, is the forecasting aspect. For us, justifying an SEO strategy and a long-term strategy, whether it's from SEO or search overall, so with paid, sometimes can be hard. A lot of a lot of us have been impacted by budget cuts, marketing budget cuts in the past few years. It hasn't been an easy time. So what we're actually doing is trying to understand and better forecast our search strategies. So through the platform, by analyzing all the enterprise pages that we're trying to target and that we're working on, we can understand the actual potential growth and potential revenue generating from these, which is something that has been very helpful to kind of secure budget and make C-level understand the potential ROI of a continuous long-term investment in search overall. And just to terminate this talk, let's say, one of the things that's just been very, very key for us is strategic alignment. So just if we were to take back 3 key topics, 3 key pillars is strategic alignment, strong team collaborations, and understanding your data. So using data to be informed, properly get your data, analyze your data, and then make some informed decisions around it. And yeah, thank you so much. If you have any questions, I think we have like 2 minutes left.
Any questions?
Thank you very much. It was super insightful. I'm just wondering, was it a process that you have enforced only in-house? Had you had support from, I don't know, an agency? What was the glue to the...
It's been completely in-house. We do rely heavily on agencies and contractors to help us get the work done. So definitely anything that is analytics, anything that is understanding our pipeline, all of this has been done in-house, so it's a lot of learning for me to understand how to measure and how to analyze these. But then when it comes to the campaign creations, we are lucky to have a pool of amazing freelancers and contractors that work for us, as well as some agencies worldwide to help us in specific markets like DACH or France, that have been helping to kind of get that local touch into some of our campaigns and messaging.
Cool. And another question there is, so I wonder, because I think this is has a lot of implications for your setup, for your CRM, a lot of processes, a lot of new
Don't
tracking.
get me started.
Yeah, I want to get you started on that, because I'm wondering how much time did it take? Like, what was the biggest challenges there to get the whole CRM and the whole operation system on a demand gen and ABM strategy then?
Yeah, so what's been key definitely is aligning with stakeholders on the importance of changing the configuration of our CRM. And we're still in the process of optimizing it through an agency who is like auditing the entire CRM and kind of letting us know. Our CRM was initially built on the old SEMrush business model, which is kind of getting a lot of leads, getting a lot of smaller deals that are very accelerated. We don't have like many business or deal stages. It's very hard to track under the same account. So an account-based CRM had to kind of be changed in the past few years, and that's like a big change that was made. Right now, we're in the stage where we're implementing workflows to actually track touch points under each campaign and understand the impact of different touch points under a same campaign through these accounts that we're converting. So it's definitely not been easy, I'm not gonna lie, and we're still kind of working through it. But what we found is sometimes it's okay to be scrappy to start. Manually upload leads. I spent, I don't know how many months manually uploading leads that came through just to make sure they were coming through properly. Because we had issues, we had to integrate. Just to give you an idea, right, with 100,000 paying customers, you can imagine the millions of free registrations that we have on our website. Those were all kind of being kept into our Marketo CRM, right? So not our Salesforce. Now we had to find a way of getting the logic to pass on potentially qualified leads from companies that might not be paying for it yet, but could have a potential intent to buy. So there's a whole logic process that we've been working through. It just took a lot of mapping, a lot of aligning with RevOps and sales. And to be honest, there was even talks of like getting a brand new CRM. Like that's just like how bad it was. We were like, wow, we should just scrap it and just do something brand new. We didn't, but yeah, it definitely wasn't easy.
There we go.
Based on what you said, it was a very hefty process internally to sell in, to do the pivots, to prove that they are working. Imagine doing it for your customers or potential customers. At least within your organization, you have the power over the champions, over all of the parties who are either aligning or arguing with each other. I'm going through the same thing myself. So, but with the customers, you also have to do the same work without having that control that you have internally.
Absolutely, and this is something I feel like a lot of companies we lack, and I feel like we've acknowledged this issue and we're kind of working on it, is as a company goes through a shift in terms of business model and mindset, we need to accompany the current customers, but future customers in that messaging as well, right? And I feel like it's just about being transparent through it and for them to understand the different buying processes that are changing. So it means that for our customers at the moment, it means a lot more customers are no longer able to get one-to-one attention from our team, but it means that we have to provide them with the equivalent of a good user experience for them to purchase the platform, right? So we can dedicate mostly to these larger companies and kind of the vision that we have, but it's definitely not been easy.
2 more questions. There we go.
Hello. You mentioned that you created some template assets. Could you tell us a bit more about which tools you use to create them, please?
Yeah, of course. So a lot of the templates we're working for an internal designing team. So it's just built in Figma or built in Adobe. But for templates for landing pages, for instance, we use Unbounced, which is a good platform that we're using. But there's many platforms, like a landing page builder is very helpful for us. We're also using an email automation tool to help us through that. So Outreach or Engage are alternative good options for us to drive cadences directly from our CRM. When it comes to the actual templates themselves, so depending on the size of your business, like I've accompanied a few smaller startups on this sort of change and just mentality, and we do it in Canva. Like it's just about getting a template for all the different kinds of posts or different kinds of assets you would need. And as part of the process of building the campaign plan and that flywheel that we talked about, it just kind of automatically gets pitched to all the different stakeholders that they have to create these assets. So we know that the paid team has to create 5 assets for our LinkedIn channels, for instance. I don't remember the exact amount. 1 email template or 2 email templates for the nurture streams, 1 conversion landing page, 1 webinar landing page is kind of what we normally work on. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
I have small 2 questions. The first one, you spoke a lot about marketing and sales alignment, but somewhere in between sales development teams, I'm curious if it's a part of marketing team or the sales team, and how divided is the outbound and inbound involvement. And additionally to that, with regards to the scoring models, you spoke a lot about like account-owned and based approach. Do you score MQLs or still like you're on the next level scoring accounts, but not MQLs?
Yeah, of course. So to answer your first question, we do split the outreach parts. So we do have a team of BDR, which eventually we assume are going to be under demand gen. But we are currently working with MDRs, so very few because it's just a small team. But we do have some people helping us kind of bring these people that are like at a 75% scored, but need just the extra push over the line to be able to have a high intent to kind of help us. These are also the people that help us, for instance, fill events, people that help us as well in getting demos for some of our shows. We just found that getting the sales team involved is just a lot of work for them as they're selling, right? So having that's been very helpful. Right now it's a very small scale, but we expect this as we're going more event heavy next year to kind of this be a big part of us. So there's definitely going to be a restructuration. In terms of the scoring, sorry, what was your question about how we score? Yeah, so ideally we would be fully an MQA scoring. I would absolutely love to be scoring accounts. We are currently at the stage, so the maturity stage of our demand gen engine, that we are scoring mostly MQLs under an account. So what we will be looking as is accounts as a whole with a high intent, and then under that we will be scoring the individual MQLs. What we are hoping to transfer to, but this is something an internal we have to sell internally, which is currently not the place right now or time. But eventually we would definitely hope to become more of an MQA kind of scoring model. Yeah, my pleasure.
Do we do one more final question?
Yeah, of course.
There we go.
Thank you very much. I have a question back to your campaign model. I'm very interested into it because we have the segment, we have the industries you mentioned, we have the persona, you have indeed on account-based different ways to approach a contact. So how do you manage it? Can you go back on that explanation, because I got confused on how you best structure your campaign?
Yeah, of course. So basically in the framework that we use, so like I said, we have the overarching theme, under the overarching theme, we have main content pieces that are going to be leading each of the campaigns. So that could be like an industry report. It could be an event that we could be attending, which we will treat as campaigns as well. So for instance, we're heading to Brighton SEO next week in the UK. And this is a whole campaign. And the reason we're doing this is to make sure that every single activity we do is actually towards a business impact. So we're not just going to events for brand awareness anymore. We're not just doing a campaign for impressions. We're actually kind of measuring all of these under the biggest revenue goal. Under that, so under each campaign, we will then be able to target the type of audience we're going after. So that means when we talk about audience, we talk more about the approach that we're having. So the approach could be a one-to-many, so that could be like programmatic. That's not the, let's just call it, it's not the traditional ABM or like for the very purist ABM people, but this is kind of more like the more digital marketing that we've done in the past, so programmatic. And then we can have the one-to-many approach where we have a segmented target list of accounts. So we could talk 500 accounts, 1,500 accounts, and then we can have the one-to-one. So based on the campaign, we might be targeting very few profiles and direct companies or direct personas under that. So we're going to be tailoring content for them. That's kind of the audience or approach that we're tailoring. And then under that, we have the types. And then in each campaign, we can have more than one types. But the type is kind of the reason why we're targeting them. Is it to expand? Is it because we saw that there was job displacement? So someone moved. So one of our ICP who used to use our platform just changed jobs. Well, this is the perfect time to kind of get into to rethink their tech stack. Is it expanding current accounts because we're attending, for instance, Brighton SEO? Half of our customers are there, so it makes sense for us to be there, or is it getting net new accounts? So that's kind of the types. And then under that, we kind of list the channels. Under the channels, what we could do is separate by the types, and then each type could have their own channel strategy, right? So for executive, so for job displacement, we could have more like a one-to-one approach, a meeting, we could have a dinner, we could have something very tailored to them. For the one-to-many approach, where we talk about expanding, 8,000 accounts, 10,000 accounts, then we can have a more broad approach on digital, ABM, do like a big webinar, produce some sort of asset that could help nurture those. Does that make sense? I do have, so if any of you want it, I do have like the full chart that I can send. It doesn't fit on the screen. Like I tried so hard, it just doesn't fit, doesn't look good. DM me on LinkedIn and I'll be able to send you the plan, okay?
Thanks, Julie. Big round of applause, please.